Hello and welcome to the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. This is Colleen Beamish from Humor Bean Cards, and today I will be using the Simon Space Adventure collection from Spellbinders. So I have a variety of products here, including the To the Moon die set. This cuts out a adorable rocket ship, moon, stars for any space-themed card. And then we have some matching sentiments, the Space Greetings die cuts, as well as the Starry Night embossing folder, which comes with a die and the coordinating stencils. So I actually am not going to end up using the stencils today, but I think it's very cool that they coordinate with this embossing folder and you can use them together. So I went ahead and die cut out all of the pieces of the To the Moon die set. I have them all arranged here. I use various scraps of cardstock, so in different colors. I like that the main rocket ship base has lines that are pressed into it when you die cut it to show you exactly where all the little pieces line up. So I'm just using some Barely Arts glue to put down a tiny bit of glue where these pieces go. They're very small pieces, so I like that with this glue it has the precision tip so you don't get too much glue in one area. And I'm just gluing those pieces down where they line up. It also helps that the packaging for this die set has a image of the completed rocket ship on the packaging so that you can kind of reference that. I was definitely glancing over at that to make sure I had all my pieces and that I was putting them in the right places. Now my color scheme here is obviously kind of girlish, I would say. I was going for kind of like mid-century space meets Barbie maybe. So I have a lot of aquas, turquoise, pinks, and I just wanted it to kind of have that mid-century modern vibe. So I'm just continuing to glue down all the pieces. You saw those side, I don't know what the parts of the rocket ship are called. So those turquoise parts at the bottom that are on the sides, they had a little line showing you where they should be glued behind the rocket ship base. So I just put glue on that and then put them on the back. This piece, I put the glue on the rocket ship and then put it over the circle here. But I think I should have put the glue on the teal circle and then glued it on. I think that would have been easier. But luckily, with the liquid glue, it makes it very easy to kind of move things around. You have a couple seconds to adjust as needed. So this rocket ship was really easy to put together. And it was a lot of fun. It's kind of just like puzzle piecing. Like I said, because they have those marks of where everything is supposed to go, they even have it on these little flames that go at the bottom of the rocket ship. So you can see that the smaller flame goes inside the larger one. With those lines there, it makes it feel like you're just kind of piecing the puzzle together. Now I also cut out the moon. There's two pieces to make up the moon, the overlay here, and then just a solid circle as a background. So I did that out of some purple cardstock, and I'll just stick those together. And then lastly, I just need to glue those flames to the bottom, which I'm pretty sure this is called the booster. Maybe that's the one thing I know about rocket ships. But I just put glue on the back of that and then stuck it right over the flames here. So I'm really happy with how this rocket ship turned out. And now I'm going to start working on my background. So I have some Distress Oxide inks here. I have them in the color Victorian Velvet, Cracked Pistachio, and Stormy Sky. And what's really funny is that I do use all of these, but they were not really the colors that ended up being my key colors. So I have some heavyweight white cardstock here, just cut down to an A2 panel. And I'm going to start with the Victorian Velvet. I thought these colors all coordinated really well with the cardstocks I had picked out. But then once I started ink blending them, I realized that they just weren't really, I don't know, I wasn't vibing. So like this color, I love this color. It's one of my favorites, but it felt kind of reddish. Like it felt very muted and more red than I wanted. So once I kind of blended it out quite a bit more, I ended up coming in with Spun Sugar, which is much more of a true pink, a very soft pink. And I'll kind of I'll go over that Victorian Velvet a little bit, trying to lighten it up. The great thing about Distress Oxide inks is that they kind of layer on top of each other. So you can kind of block out a color if you don't like it. I didn't do that too severely. I started going in on the other corner And the other thing about this background is that it's very abstract. I wanted it to just be kind of playful. Like I was like, let's get out some inks and just start blending them together, which is always very fun. So I put a lot of spun sugar in this corner, and then I'm going to start coming in with the, well, actually I'm going to clean my background, my craft mat here. I'm just using a microfiber towel, just so that I'm not spreading ink where I don't want it. So tidying up between colors is always recommended. Now I'm coming in with the cracked pistachio, and in my head, this color was like very much kind of a turquoise green, but when I put it down, it's very much a true green. Like I was surprised at how green this color was. I guess I don't use this color very often, but also noting that mixing that with Victorian velvet is going to create kind of a muddy color. Greens and reds are complementary. So I was like, oh, that's not really the color I wanted. So I'm coming in with tumbled glass and again, trying to kind of cover up the cracked pistachio. And I'll actually end up bringing the tumbled glass down into the other corner. So now my piece here is kind of looking red, pink, green, and blue, which wasn't really my intention. You can see I'm bringing the tumbled glass kind of over onto the pink, knowing that the blue and pink will create more of a purple color. So I wasn't too worried about layering those together, and I was hoping I would kind of get more of a solid blend if I overlapped them. So I'll just keep going in with the tumbled glass. And then I actually continue to try to cover up that green, but it's not really working how I want it to. The green was really green. So then I think I end up coming in with shaded lilac. Yeah, I come in with shaded lilac, which is very pretty purple. And I add that in, hoping that it kind of gives me more of a spacey, I don't know, more blended look. And I'm going right on the borders of those pinks, knowing that, again, this will mix well with both the reds and the blues. So yeah, I'm starting to like it a little bit better, but that green was still really bothering me. So I end up coming in with Broken China, which is much more of a turquoise blue, and I'm covering up that green as much as I can. It's still going to have that green undertone, but I'm much happier with it now that it has the Broken China over top. So I'm nearly finished with this. I'm just going to come back in with a little bit more of that shaded lilac just to reinforce the blend and make sure that purple is still coming through. And then I'm going to move on to another aspect of my background, which is these two white panels using the Starry Night embossing folder. So like I said at the beginning of this video, the embossing folder also comes with a die so that you can cut the bottom edge so that it lines up with the embossing folder. And I just have some, again, an A2 panel of white cardstock. I wanted it to be the same length as my card base. And I'm just lining up that die so that there's going to be, I would say, an 1.25 inches maybe of space above the die, because this die cuts the bottom edge. So I'll just tape that onto my cardstock with some washi tape so that it stays in place, and I will run that through my die cutting machine. Now, I definitely recommend die cutting before you do the embossing, because if you run the embossed piece of paper through your die cutting machine, I assume it would flatten it out. So now I'm going to line up my die cut piece with the embossing folder. You can see here how raised those stars are, and I want the side with the stars raised up on the back of my die cut piece. So the back of my paper is touching the raised stars, and I'm just lining that up. You can see through the embossing folder to see where the stars line up with that bottom edge, and I'm just making adjustments as needed, and then I will close this up and I will run it through my die cutting machine. You can definitely tape this piece into place if you feel the need to, but I figured it would stay in place no problem. So I just run that through my die machine to apply that pressure, and it is an incredible result. This is a 3D embossing folder, so it has a lot of dimension, and I'm very impressed by it. So I actually repeat all of those steps just so that I have two of these white panels, because they're going to go on either side of my card. So now I'm going to work on my sentiments. In the Space Greetings die set, you get 3 different sentiments, including Love You to the Moon and Back, which is the one I will be using today, with some matte silver cardstock that I have in my stash. The die set also has the sentiment Greetings Earthling and Happy Birthday. And I figure you can kind of mix and match these. So like you could do Happy Birthday Earthling, or Happy Greetings, or Love You Earthling, or whatever you want. So these are teeny tiny sentiments. So I did have to get out my tweezers to start putting them together. But I die cut that out of the silver cardstock. And then I also die cut it twice more out of some white cardstock. So I'm just going to stack these up. I wanted the sentiments to have a little bit of dimension. So again, I'm using my tweezers and some Barely Arts glue to stack these together. And this is a slightly tedious process, something that I enjoy, but everybody might not. So this is definitely a completely optional step. You can die cut this once and stick it on your card, but I wanted it to have a little bit more substance to it. So I have 2 layers of the white cardstock and then 1 layer of the silver cardstock. And again, I think tweezers are the way to go because these are teeny tiny sentiments. I have you zoomed in here and it's still very small. So, and the Barely Arts glue is also fantastic for this. Again, with that precision tip, it means you can get just a little bit of glue because you don't need a lot on this small of a sentiment. So once I'm happy with that, I'm just showing you how I layered one word, but I did this with all of the letters. I just didn't want to take up all of your time showing you me doing the same steps over and over again. And here you can see that dimension that was added and how it has those layers all together. So I decided that my background needed a little bit more. So I'm coming in with some water. I'm just spritzing that onto my hand and then flicking it onto my card panel. And because I use Distress Oxide inks, it's water reactive, which means that where I put down that water, the color will kind of lift. So now I'm coming in with a paper towel and I will just take away that water and you'll see I have kind of a water splattered panel. You don't want to use a ton of water because it is a cardstock background, not a watercolor paper background. And I'm also splattering on some white acrylic paint. So I just put some white paint onto my acrylic block here. And I spritzed a little bit of water in there so that it had, it was kind of liquidy. And then I'm just using a paintbrush to flick it off of that acrylic block. And now my background panel is done. And I have to clean up because acrylic paint will stick around longer than you want it to if you don't wipe it away right away. So I'm going to let that dry. I didn't let it dry too long because I'm really impatient. But now I have my 2 white star panels here, and I'm putting foam tape on the back. So just along the entire backs of both sides. Then I'll take away the release paper, and I'm going to stick these, like I said before, on either side of my background panel. Now the first one that I put down, I just try to stick it into the corner. But there's a trick that I almost always use when I put things in corners, and I don't know why I didn't do it here because it wasn't lined up exactly how I wanted it to be. So on the second one, I bring over my Score Buddy and I stick my panel into the corner, and then I put the white panel over top of that, again, nestled into the corner of this. And it just makes sure that they are both actually lined up edge to edge like they should be. I ended up trimming off a very small sliver of the background because that one side that I didn't use my Score Buddy to line up did have some paper showing underneath. Now I'm gluing down the moon, and I'm just using my liquid glue for that because I'm actually going to tuck it behind the white panel. I did have to peel up the foam tape a little bit to do this, but I had no trouble with that. And I'll just see how everything's lining up and adjust the moon as needed. Again, that's one of the best parts of using liquid glue is that you can kind of adjust and you have some time to do so. Now my rocket ship is also popped up. I have some foam tape on the back of that, but when I went ahead and put it down on my card, it wasn't popped up enough. I wanted it to be like the focal point. So I ended up going in with another layer of foam tape. So I just cut down another piece of that and layered it right over top of where the foam tape already was. And that just will add dimension so that the white panels that have one layer of foam tape, this is above that because now it has 2 layers of foam tape. So it's really kind of emphasizing the rocket ship. So the last step of this card is just to add my sentiment. So I have all my little words here, and I played around with the placement of these. Originally, I thought I was going to put love you on one side, then to the moon and back on the other, love you on one side, to the moon on the other, and then and back on the first side, if that makes sense. But I decided that was like too jumpy, like you had to jump around to read the sentiment and it looked kind of weird. So I ended up just putting love you too on the left side and the moon and back on the right side, and it kind of cascades down the card. And again, I'm just using my liquid glue to glue these down. I think liquid glue is really your only option when doing this because one, the background has a lot of texture, so you're kind of gluing it over raised and varying heights here. And I don't think anything else is going to stick down as well as this glue will. So it's, again, slightly tedious, but definitely using my tweezers is helping me to hold the word and get little bits of glue all over the back of it and stick it down. So I repeated that process with all of the words, and then my card is finished. I love how this turned out. I think the colors are perfect. It's so fun. It's definitely the vibe I was going for. And actually my card is not finished because I forgot that this was just a front card panel. So I didn't have the actual card base. So I'm making that now. I have a piece of heavyweight cardstock that's 5.5 tall by 8.5 wide, and then I scored it at 4.25, and I'm just reinforcing that fold with my bone folder. And then I'm going to use that same trick to line this up. So I'm putting some just double-sided adhesive on the back of my card front. You can definitely use liquid glue for this. I don't know why I don't. I think it's just like I know that I get more coverage with this tape. And the tape is very strong. I'm very impressed by it. So I'll just stick that down and then remove the release paper and then bring my Score Buddy back over to line these up. So again, I'm putting the card base in the corner and then I'll just line the card front right over top. And that is the easiest way to line up your card front with your card base. So now the card is done and I love how it turned out. The colors are everything. And it's just such a fun vibe because I feel like the set looks very boyish, but this is a way to make it feminine and fun. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the ScrapbookPal channel because there's always new creative inspiration over here all the time. So I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.